We're talking shifting your beliefs and behaviors. And I'll tell you right now, one of the worst things you can ever say to yourself is, you know what sounds good right now? Dot, dot, dot. Yeah, we're going to talk about that here in the Dallas Daily Show, coming at you from the Neighborhood Loan Studio in St. Louis, Missouri, my friends. Let's get into it. So this whole week, we've been talking shifting your beliefs and behaviors. Yesterday, we talked about recognizing old patterns. Fun little ep. Go ahead, give it a listen. Today, we're going to talk about this idea of, in order to shift your belief and behaviors, the second thing you have to do is you have to ignore your impulses. Tell you a funny little story here. So there was a restaurant chain here in the St. Louis, Missouri area when I was a kid growing up. It was called Tippin's Pie Pantry. I don't know if you know what that was, if you happen to be in the St. Louis area and you remember this, but it was just this little chain of restaurants that they were famous for their pies. Kind of like a Marie Callender's would be now, probably. So Tippin's, though, they had one particular pie called French Silk. And I don't know if you've ever had a French Silk pie. I've had them from different brands over the years, but the Tippin's one was just absolutely spectacular. Like when I was a kid growing up, it was a bad idea if a Tippin's pie French Silk came around. And I'm saying that story with full knowledge of the fact that it sounds like a sugar addict talking at you right now. So let's go ahead and talk about that. I had an old intrusive thought come in, and we talked about these just a little bit on last week's midweek mind shift call when we talked about internalizing, right, of all of the 5 steps. Step 4 is internalizing the new you, or getting the new operating system, the new downgrade. But sometimes what happens is old intrusive thoughts will come back. And I'm going to tell you one of the lead indicators for you to recognize old beliefs, old behaviors, old patterns, old habits. First, you have to recognize the old pattern, right? Secondly, what you have to do is you have to ignore some old impulses. That's kind of the second step here. So that intrusive thought came in. I was just driving with my wife, and I just started laughing. And she goes, "What are you laughing about?" I had this whole internal dialogue that took place in my brain. I just started cracking up, and she was like, "What are you laughing about?" And I go, you know what? No, it's good. I don't need to share it. She was like, "No, now you have to share it." It's kind of a rule around our house. If you laugh maniacally to yourself and you say, "I don't want to talk about it," the other person is totally allowed to say, "Well, now you have to. I need to know what that maniacal laughing was." And inside my brain, an intrusive thought happened, which was, you know what sounds good right now is a Tippin's pie. Tippin's French Silk pie specifically. No sooner had that intrusive thought come in, you know what sounds good right now, than I was like, heck no, that's not what future you does. Future you doesn't eat old Tippin's pie, which, by the way, the chain is gone. But the Deerberg's chain, the grocery chain, they still carry Tippin's pies. I happened to, a couple of months ago, see that they carried Tippin's French Silk. And so that thought just went back into the old think tank, and we're driving along. We pass a Deerberg's, right? James Clear, cue, craving, response, reward, right? From Atomic Habits. Got the cue, oh, Deerberg's. And then in my brain, it went, you know what sounds good right now? ... Tippin's French Silk pie. No sooner had the thought happen, though, the new me came battling forward, right? This is like bad if you're watching the visual. And came and met the old intrusive thought, and it was like, we don't do that anymore. And I just started laughing because I was like, there's my future you, cowboy, riding to the rescue. And I'm cracking up in the car. Having said any of this out loud to my wife, didn't even say, you know what sounds good right now, honey? Because usually she'd go, oh, God, he's got a craving for something crappy. The whole occurrence took place in my brain. It was fantastic. I recognized an old pattern, right? That's step number 1 to shifting beliefs and behaviors. Then all of a sudden, I ignored an impulsive thought that came through, or an intrusive thought that came through that wanted to take me back to an old cue, an old craving. So I was able to shift the belief around it. I don't like those anymore. I don't want those anymore. I'm sure as heck not going to pull off into the grocery store parking lot and pick one up for myself, because I ignored the impulse. But I also laughed my way through the impulse. So even though step number 1 is recognizing old patterns, step number 2, ignoring your impulse, right? Maybe a more empowering thing for you is to laugh your way through how ridiculous your old impulses are. So let's take that to your life really quickly. Where in your life are you currently, when an old impulse comes up, an old thought of, you know what sounds good right now? An old craving, right? You know what sounds good right now? Or your version, your variation of that. Even now, as I say that phrase, some of you are starting to laugh in your car going, you know what does sound good right now? Is a shake from blank. You know what does sound good right now? Is yada yada. You've got it, the impulse already occurring in your brain. What would happen if you would start to laugh off the old impulse? You know, I don't do that anymore. That's not what new me does. You could totally shift your belief and behavior around it because you ignored the impulse and you recognized just how ridiculous the old pattern is. Maybe that's something we got to do. In order to diminish the power of the old thought, we just simply have to start to laugh off the old thought. Like, that's silly, ridiculous, and I don't need it anymore. So that's it. That's all I got for you in this particular conversation today is where can you ignore the you know what sounds good right now, impulse, or even laugh it off? How could that help you in shifting the belief, shifting the behavior, and becoming the you that you want to be? All right, my friends, go out there, have a championship day.
Thanks for listening to my dad's podcast. For more tools, go to dallasdailyshow.com. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.